Hello everybody, welcome to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. My name is Pointer. We are going to today be walking through the basics of making a character sheet for Dungeons and Dragons. So we are going to be making a level 1 character. Not quite sure who we're going to make yet. I think we're going to use our fancy dice here to help us decide who we're going to make. And then hopefully I can give you the idea of what's going to go where on the sheet and what to do for that. So to start, we're going to open up our book here. And if you notice, we've got all the races here and all the classes here. So we are just going to randomly decide what we're going to make with some dice. We'll roll a d10 for the race and a d12 for the class. Alright, so 3 looks like it is a Halfling Sorcerer. Alright. So we're going to write in race, we're going to put Halfling. And I'm going to apologize in advance for my handwriting because it's probably going to be real hard to see. Actually, you know what? Let's try a pen. I bet that'll work even better. You should not do this in pen, by the way. Always use pencil, but for the sake of making things show up on video, I'm going to break the rules just a little bit. There we go. So, Halfling. And then we are going to have Sorcerer. Level 1. Alright, so the first thing we'll want to do is pick what kind of halfling we are, because there are different kinds of halflings, if you remember from our other video. So, for halflings, we have the Lightfoot and the Stout halfling. I think just for the sake of this, we'll go with a Lightfoot halfling. So we'll write in Lightfoot. And I think just to continue on with our random decisions, we're going to make our character a, let's say, since she's a sorcerer, or he's a sorcerer, who's to say, they're probably going to have a background of, let's say, a noble. So they used to be a rich person, a wealthy person. They used to have tons of money. Maybe they come from a very well-off family. So we'll make them a noble. That's their background. And with their background, let me mark my page over here so we don't lose it. They get some specific things. So they are going to get a skill proficiency in history and persuasion. So what that means is we're going to find on here where it says history and persuasion, and we are going to fill in these little bubbles. History and persuasion. So what that means is any skill with this little bubble filled in, our character is super good at. So we'll want to keep that in mind for the future. Let's see. They're also proficient in a type of gaming set. So proficiencies, we're going to put down here in this little box. Let's say for a gaming set, let's just say a card set. We'll say she's good at cards. And I keep saying she, so I think she's just going to be a woman. We'll make our lives easy. And languages. So one of our choice. So she gets to learn any language that we want. Maybe when she was growing up, she spent a lot of time with some of her dwarven friends, so she can speak dwarf. And then the last thing on here is equipment. So these are things that she has on her person. So she's going to have fine clothes. And we're going to put that down here in this middle section where it says equipment. She has a signet ring. She has a scroll of pedigree, which is basically like proving where her family came from. And then the last thing is she has 25 gold pieces. So we're going to find the box over here that says GP, which is this fourth one, and we're going to put 25. So, and this is one of the big reasons why, I know I'm breaking the rules using the pen, you really want to use a pencil, because all this stuff can change at any given time. So you might be erasing things, you might be putting new things in there, but I'm going to do my best to keep it kind of clean for us. Alright, so now that we know where she came from, let's take a look at who she is as a person. So we've already said that she is going to be a woman. It gives us some possible names here. So female names. Let's go with Bree, and then her last name is going to be Tea Leaf. So Bree. Is there an H on the end of it? I think it did. Nope. Bree Tea Leaf, our Halfling Sorcerer. So what we're going to do now is, now that we have her name, oh, we need to put my name in there so we know whose this is. So let's put Poyntr. There we go. We don't have an alignment or experience points yet. This is kind of our decision to make. Starting at level 1, she's going to have 0 experience points for now, but I'm sure she'll get there eventually. And then her alignment, she's probably going to be a pretty good person overall, but she might be, you know, a little bit on the gray side. So let's just say that she is, we'll say, neutral good. Neutral good. So she tends to be on the good side, but she could have a little bit of that gray area every once in a while. Alright. So then, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the traits that all halflings have. So right off the bat, her dexterity score is going to increase by 2. So that means whatever number we put in here for dexterity is going to go up by 2. And, because she's a Lightfoot, her charisma is also going to go up by 1. Now, there are a couple of different ways that you can determine your stats. My recommendation for new players is that if you look in the book, there's actually preset stats for you. So if we come in here, it recommends you use 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. Now, since we have a sorcerer, her magic is going to be coming from her charisma. So we're going to want her charisma to be her highest stat. So we're going to put the 15 in there, but because she got her increase of 1 for being a Lightfoot halfling, that charisma is going to be 16. Okay? And then let's say we make her dexterity the next highest one, because she's pretty small, she's pretty quick. So we're going to take the second highest one of 14, plus the 2 she gets for being a halfling, and her dexterity is also going to be 16. Okay? So she's super fast, she's super charismatic, she knows how to get what she wants from people. And then our next one is going to be 13. Let's see, she's probably pretty smart, right? So let's make her intelligence the 13. The next one is 12. Maybe she's very wise as well. She's spent some time knowing what she's doing. Let's make her wisdom a 12. And then we have 10 and 8. This is where we start to get to the stats that aren't super good. So she's probably not gonna be very good at taking hits. She's a sorcerer. She's probably a little bit squishy. So let's make her constitution, or her health, a 10. And then because she's a sorcerer, she's probably going to be pretty weak, right? She's always using her magic. She doesn't use her hands too much. She's also a noble, so like she probably didn't do too much heavy lifting as a kid. So her strength is going to be an 8. Okay. So once we've got all of these, this is going to determine, in these little bubbles here, some pluses and minuses. And these are what we're going to add to our rolls when we roll them. So her 16s are actually going to be plus 3 in these little bubbles. The, let's see, 13 is going to be a plus 1. The 12 is also going to be a plus 1. The 10 is a plus 0, which I know sounds kind of weird, but we'll explain that. And the 8 is going to be a -1. She's really, really bad with her strength. So what that winds up meaning is if we were to take our d20 and say we want to push this big rock up a hill, we're going to make a strength check. And if we roll a 17, which is real good, we're actually going to -1 to it. So it's like we rolled a 16. So she's not really strong. But if we rolled a 17 to try to jump over something using her dexterity, that would be like a 20. So that's much better. Okay, so your character's not going to be good at everything. That's okay. Alright, so our next piece of this, let's go back to our halfling. And we'll take a look at what else she gets. Whoops, too far. Halfling. Let's see. So, halflings become adults at the age of 20 and live into the middle of their 2nd century. So she could be pretty old. Let's flip to our 2nd page here where we have our description of her. And let's say she's 72. We'll say she's 72. Halflings are usually about 3 feet tall and weigh about 40 pounds. So let's make her a little bit on the short side. Let's say she's 2 foot 10 and she weighs 37 pounds. Okay, the rest of this is going to be up to you. So we can say her eyes are brown, her skin, maybe, let's see, do they have a specific in here? No, let's say she's just got darker skin, like tannish. And then her hair, we'll say, is black. Just some basic descriptions of her as a person. And then we can go into more detail. If I were an artist, which I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not, I might be able to draw a good picture of her. Her backstory we'll fill in later, but all of this stuff is what you want your character to be. So if our character grew up as a noble, she might be, pretty wealthy, she knows what she's doing, she's well educated. All that stuff we would fill out. But let's flip back to our front page here. The next thing is our speed. So most races in D&D have a speed of 30 feet. Because our little halfling here is a little bit shorter, her speed, which is in this box, is only going to be 25. But for her features, the next thing on here, and I'm trying to keep it both on the same page for you, and I apologize that some of it's going off the screen. But her next thing on here is lucky. So she is lucky. We can write that in her little feats box. That means that whenever she rolls a 1 on her d20, she can re-roll it, but she has to take the one she rolls next, which is pretty cool. She's also brave, which means that she has advantage on saving throws against being frightened. And she has something called Halfling Nimbleness. So she can move through another creature's space if they are larger than her. For her languages, we already had Dwarf from earlier, if you remember. So now she's going to get Common, which is kind of like the language that everybody can speak in Dungeons and Dragons. Well, most people can speak. And then because she's a halfling, she can also speak Halfling. All right. And then we've already picked her subrace. She's a Lightfoot. And so she is going to be naturally stealthy. So, naturally stealthy. This means that she can attempt to hide even if she's only behind another person. She can pretty much just hide behind people, which is pretty cool. All right. So we have who she is as a person. So now, let's take a look at who she might be as a sorcerer. So let's flip open to sorcerer. Oops, I went too far there. Sorcerer. Now, this might look a little confusing, but what it basically says is this is a chart of what your sorcerer is going to get at every single level as they level up. We don't have to worry about most of this right now. She's only level 1. So we're just going to start at the top, and we're going to work our way down until we have filled out this character sheet. So, at level 1, if you notice, her hit dice, which is this box here, is going to be 1d6. And you can spend those when you take a rest to heal your character. And her hit points are going to be 6 plus her Constitution modifier. Now, your modifier is this little number that we put in this bubble earlier. So her hit points are 6 plus 0. So her hit points are only 6. Not a whole lot, but we kind of knew that going in. She wasn't going to be super buff, right? The next thing is going to be proficiencies. That's what's going to be in this box down here. Again, remember, this is stuff that she's good at. So for her weapons, she can use daggers, darts, slings, quarterstaffs, and light crossbows. So those are the things that she is good at using. That doesn't mean she has them on her person right now. We're going to do that next. So moving on, she isn't good at using any armor. She isn't good at using any tools. But she does get 2 saving throws. That is over here. We're going to fill in some more bubbles. We get Constitution and Charisma. And then for our skills, it's going to give us a list of things. In this case, the list that this gives us is Arcana, Deception, Insight, Intimidation, Persuasion, and Religion. Now, it's only going to let us pick 2 of these things. Lucky for us, we already have Persuasion from being a noble, so we don't have to pick Persuasion. But I think Arcana, since that's magic, is probably something she would be good at. And I think the second one is going to be Insight. She's going to be very good at being able to tell if people are lying to her. She's a noble, so she can tell if people are being kind of tricksy. Alright, so now that we have all these filled in, this is where some math comes into this, right? So at level 1, our proficiency bonus up here is +2. That's going to go up as you level up. This is how good you are at these skills that you have filled in. So these little lines next to everything, that's where we're going to put our modifiers, or the things that we add to our rolls when we roll them. So strength, right, it's this bubble, it's -1. Dexterity, this bubble, +3. Constitution is this bubble, which is +0, but because we filled in this bubble here, we also get to add +2. So this is +0 and +2, which is just +2. Intelligence, we have +1. Wisdom, we have +1. And Charisma, we get +3. And because it's filled in, we also get +2. So that one actually becomes +5. So she's super good at Charisma. Then we're going to do the same thing for everything else down here. And if you want to know what stats these are, because if you notice, acrobatics is not something over here, but next to it, it says dex. So we know that that is a dexterity ability. So dexterity is +3. Her animal handling is wisdom, that's +1. Her arcana is intelligence, which is +1. But because the bubble's filled in, we also get a +2, so that becomes +3. Her athletics, not super great, that's a -1. Her deception is charisma, that's +3. Her history is intelligence, and because the bubble's filled in, proficiency, so that's +3. Insight is the same thing, wisdom +1, and because the bubble's filled in, we get proficiency, also +3. Intimidation, which is charisma, is +3. Investigation is intelligence, that's +1. Medicine is wisdom, that's +1. Nature is intelligence, that's +1. Perception is wisdom, that's +1. Performance is charisma, that's +3. Persuasion is charisma, and because the bubble's filled in, the proficiency, so that's +5. Religion is intelligence, that's +1. Sleight of hand is dexterity, that's +3. Stealth is her dexterity, that's +3. And survival is wisdom, that's +1. So, I know that sounds like a lot. It's a lot of writing. But on the bright side, as you level up, all of these skills are going to go up for the most part. This also allows us to figure out our passive wisdom. Now, your passive wisdom is always 10 plus whatever your perception is here. So this is a +1, and 10 plus 1 is 11. So our passive wisdom is 11. That means that if someone tries to sneak past us and they roll lower than 11 for their stealth, we just automatically get to see them. The other thing that this is going to let us do is figure out our initiative. Initiative here is how quickly we get to go when fighting starts. So when fighting starts, we get to roll a d20, and whatever the number is, let's say it's a 14, then anyone who rolled above a 14 takes their turn before us. Anyone who rolls below a 14 takes their turn after us. But because our dexterity is +3, our initiative is also +3, meaning that this 14 that we rolled is actually a 17, because we get to add 3 to it. Alright. Almost there, guys. So, the next piece of this is going to be the actual equipment that we have. And this is where you get to choose what your person has when the game starts. So this gives us the choice of a light crossbow and 20 bolts, or any simple weapon. We're going to take the light crossbow, and we're going to write it down here in our equipment spot. So light crossbow plus 20 bolts. And maybe we'll use that, but maybe we won't. Just kind of depends. The next thing we get to choose is a component pouch or an arcane focus. Now, because we're a spellcaster, a component pouch is basically going to be a bag of things that we can use to cast our spells. If we run out of components, we won't be able to cast our spells. An arcane focus means we don't need the components, but if we lose the arcane focus, we can't cast our spells. So we're going to pick an arcane focus. We're going to say it's a necklace that her mom gave her. So we have our arcane focus. And then we get to choose a pack. So she could either have a Dungeoneer's pack or an Explorer's pack. And in the book it tells you what she has, like what each of the packs is. But just for the sake of this, we're going to pick an Explorer's pack. Okay. And then the last thing on the list is that says that we get 2 daggers. So we'll take 2 daggers. And the benefit to being a sorcerer means that we automatically get spells. So what this is going to do for us is that it's going to give us the ability to actually cast spells at level 1. And we have to figure out where our origin is. Where do we get our magic from? Because I'm a fan of more of the chaos side of things. We're going to go with wild magic. So we're going to, over here, say that we have wild magic. And then we're going to move to our spell casting page. So for this, our spell casting class up here is going to be Sorcerer. Sorcerer. Our ability is the skill that we actually use, which remember is going to be Charisma. And we're just going to shorten that. We're just going to put Cha, because I don't want to write the whole thing. The spell save DC. That is, if you see on this page, going to be 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your charisma modifier. So our proficiency bonus is +2. Our charisma modifier is +3. So 8 plus 2 plus 3 gives us 13. And then our spell attack is just our proficiency plus our charisma. So that's just +5. So +5. And what that means is if we throw a firebolt at somebody, whatever we roll on our d20, we get to add +5 to that. Or if we try to, use a magic spell to grab someone, they have to roll above a 13 to get out of it. So pretty good, not too bad. Now, because we are a sorcerer, at level 1, we know 4 cantrips. I'm just going to write 4 in there so I can remember. And we know 2 spells, and we have 2 level 1 spell slots. What that means is that every day we can cast 2 spells. Once we've used our 2 spells for the day, no more. Okay. So let's see what we get for wild magic. So wild magic, I'm going to flip back to our first page here, because we get some features. We have something called a wild magic surge. So wild magic surge, which basically means that at any point we can re-roll a d20. Oh, I'm sorry, not re-roll a d20. We can roll a d20, and if we roll a 1, then we lose control of our magic. Or we can choose to do this, and we can roll the d20 again to maybe try to hit something that we missed, or get a second chance at something. But if we do that, we still lose control of our magic. And when that happens, then we have to roll on this table here, and some random magical effect happens. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes we gain resistance to all damage for the next minute, and other times we might cast Fireball on ourselves and explode. So it's risky, but it's fun. Alright, so we are almost done. So we're going to pick out our spells, then we're going to do our equipment, and then we will wrap things up. So for spells, we're going to flip into the back of the book to where these spells are, and we're going to find the sorcerer spells. So if you remember, we have 4 cantrips. So we're going to look at this list of spells and decide which ones we want. Cantrips we can cast anytime, any day, as much as we want. So we're just going to pick some kind of at random. Let's say we want Firebolt. Let's say we want Message. Let's say we want True Strike. And we want Poison Spray. Alright, so that would be our cantrips. And if you ever want to know what they do, you can flip through the book and they have descriptions of all the spells back in the back of it. Alright, now, for first level spells, we only get 2. Some classes get as many as they want. We only get 2. So let's take stuff that might help us. So Mage Armor. Since our character isn't super good at taking a hit, we'll take some Mage Armor. And we'll take Magic Missile, which is a spell that always hits. So it's super good if you're trying to stay far away from the fighting. So that would be our character's spells. Now, we're going to flip back to our first page, and we're going to do her equipment. So she doesn't wear armor, which means, let's see if I can find the actual armor part of this book. Oops, there we go. So since she's not actually wearing any armor, she's not going to get the benefit of having the armor. So her armor would be 9 plus her constitution. So obviously not going to be super great right off the bat. A little bit squishy. So her armor is 9, which means that if she ever takes a hit, the enemy has to roll above a 9 to hit her. So pretty easy to hit her, but hopefully she won't be in the front lines and won't have to worry about that too much. The next bit of this is going to be her weapons. So we know that she has daggers, and we know that she has a light crossbow. So just to make our lives easier, we're going to put them here, so that way we can determine how much damage they do and how easy it is for us to hit someone with them. So the attack bonus with a dagger, we're going to find a dagger. It's going to be finesse, which means we get to use our dexterity, and since she's good at it, we take our dexterity, +3, plus our proficiency, +2, and we put it in our attack bonus, that's +5. So if we roll our d20 to hit somebody with a dagger, and we roll a 14, we add 5, that's actually a 19. And if they have 9 armor class like we do, it's definitely going to hit them. Our next one is our light crossbow, which is also dexterity because it's a ranged weapon. So that's also going to be +5. And then the damage that they do, the light crossbow does 1d8 piercing damage, and the dagger does 1d4 piercing damage. So if we hit somebody with our dagger, we get to roll our d4, and whatever we roll, so in this case it's a 2, okay, then we would do 2 damage plus our dexterity, +3. So that would be, and we'll actually write that in there so we don't forget. So that would actually be 5 damage from a dagger, which is pretty good. That would almost kill us if that hit us. Alright, so that is the end of making our sorcerer. We're not going to go super in-depth with the background and everything, because this has been a long video already. But if you guys have any questions about Miss Bree Tealeaf here, if I missed anything, if you would like to see us level her up in the future, we can do that as well. Just let me know. And if you have any suggestions for future videos or any questions, please just put those in the comments. And I will see you all on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.